Imagine living in Spain in the late 1400s, where a single rumor could seal your fate, a neighbor's quiet accusation, a whispered claim that you'd practiced forbidden rites or defied the church could bring the weight of the Inquisition to your door. No trial by peers, no chance to prove your innocence. Once your name appeared in an official notice, soldiers could appear at night, chain your wrists, and lead you through the narrow streets to a cold stone cell. The most frightening part, you might never learn the exact charge against you. For days, sometimes weeks, you waited in the dark, unsure whether you were accused of heresy, of aiding supposed witches, or merely of angering the wrong person. Fear itself became the first instrument of torment. This was the world the Spanish Inquisition created, a world where authority claimed to save souls, but often worked by breaking the body and the will. In the Inquisition's chambers, silence was rarely a comfort. Above the prisoner's head, a single rope dangled from a beam, plain, almost harmless at first glance. This was the Strappado, one of the most feared instruments of the era. An accused woman's wrists were tied tightly behind her back. The rope was looped through the pulley overhead and hooked to her bound arms. Then, at the inquisitor's command, the executioner hauled her upward, forcing her shoulders to bear the weight of her entire body. There was no blade, no fire, often not even a visible wound. That was precisely why inquisitors called it a moderate method, as if it were merciful. But the pain was intense. Ligaments tore, shoulders sometimes dislocated, nerves were damaged so badly that victims could lose the use of their arms. Sometimes the torment was worsened by sudden drops, lowering the victim a few feet, then yanking her back up. Every jolt sent new shocks of pain through joints already stretched beyond their limits. The Strappado was not meant to kill. Its purpose was to break resistance, to draw out confessions the inquisitors demanded to hear. Some victims cried out and confessed to anything. Others stayed silent and were raised again and again. Records are incomplete, but across Spain and its colonies, the Strappado became a standard tool of persuasion, leaving behind few scars but lifelong injuries, and countless unrecorded cries that faded into the stone walls. Among the devices whispered about in hushed tones, few inspired more dread than the iron spider. It didn't look like a traditional weapon, no sharp swords, no heavy hammers. Instead, it was a set of curved iron prongs fixed to a wall, sometimes heated in the flames before being used. Those accused of heresy or forbidden acts, often women who were healers, widows, or simply outspoken, were brought before this cold, glinting frame. By the time they faced it, they were usually weakened by hunger, exhaustion, and days of fear. The inquisitors didn't need a crowd. The iron spider worked in isolation, in quiet chambers lit by a few flickering torches. The metal arms were pressed against vulnerable parts of the body, chosen deliberately to cause lasting pain and humiliation. When the prongs were heated, the suffering was almost unbearable. What made the iron spider especially terrifying was its purpose. It wasn't about evidence or truth. It was about breaking a person's spirit. Inquisitors often targeted women, not because of proven crimes, but because controlling their bodies was seen as a way to control their faith and their silence. For many, the damage lingered long after the questioning ended. The iron spider left scars, sometimes visible, sometimes hidden, that marked not only the skin but the soul. If the Strappado preyed on the joints and the iron spider on the flesh, the rack went after the entire frame of the human body. Picture a long wooden table with heavy rollers at both ends. Iron chains bound the prisoner's wrists to one side, ankles to the other. Then, with deliberate slowness, the inquisitors turned the rollers. The ropes tightened. The victim's body stretched, vertebra by vertebra, as the cords bit into the skin. The rack was not designed to end life, at least not directly. Its purpose was to tear down the will. With each turn, muscles strained, tendons screamed, and joints edged toward a dislocation. The victim's voice might break into pleas or fall silent under the pressure. What made it so cruel was the pretense of legality. In the eyes of the tribunal, torture was only a tool to encourage truth, not to punish. yet many who endured the rack confessed to anything demanded of them, whether it was real or imagined. Women were particularly vulnerable. Accusations could be as slight as rumors of healing with herbs or gossip about disobedience. Once chained to the rack, resistance became almost impossible. Confessions extracted in this way were often treated as proof of guilt, a twisted loop of accusation and torment. For the Inquisition, the rack was a silent partner, pulling not just the limbs of the accused, but the boundaries of what a human body could endure. For the accused, it was the moment hope began to slip away. Unlike the clanking chains of the rack or the creaking ropes of the Strappado, the Pear of Anguish was small enough to fit in one hand. That made it no less dreaded. Its surface looked harmless at first, on a smooth iron shell shaped like a fruit, but it was divided into metal petals, each controlled by a screw at the base. In dim, torch-lit chambers, this device was often used in silence. It was turned slowly, forcing the petals to spread apart. The pain was intense but left almost no visible trace, a fact the Inquisitors used to claim their methods were merciful. Historical records about the pair are scattered, and some details come from later accounts. Still, its reputation as an instrument of control is well attested in stories passed down from the era. Those accused of blasphemy or spreading forbidden ideas might have it forced into their mouths to silence them. Women accused of breaking moral codes often feared it even more because of the shame attached to its use. The Pear of Anguish embodied the Inquisition's chilling principle that torment should not spill blood. To many victims, it felt like a punishment designed not only to hurt but to humiliate, turning their own vulnerability into a weapon against them. Even if some details were exaggerated in later retellings, the fear it inspired was real. In a system where pain was equated with purification, the pair became a symbol of how far that logic could be twisted. Among the most haunting devices of the Inquisition was the judgment chair, a seat built not for rest but for agony. Imagine a heavy chair made entirely of iron or thick oak, its surface covered with hundreds of sharp metal spikes. They lined the backrests, the seat, the armrests, even the footrest. Once seated, the accused was strapped in so tightly that any attempt to shift their weight drove the spikes deeper into their skin. The torment often didn't end there. In some accounts, inquisitors placed glowing coals beneath the chair so that the metal itself grew hot, adding a slow burn to the stabbing pain. This chair was not used to pass legal judgment. It was used to break the prisoner's resolve. The inquisitors believed that a body made too weary to resist would finally give up whatever truth they demanded. For many women, the sight of the chair alone could provoke despair. Bound in place, they could not flinch or move away. Hours spent in the spikes could feel like an eternity, and few emerged without lasting injuries. Devices like the judgment chair revealed the Inquisition's dark genius, the ability to turn ordinary objects, rope, wood, iron, into tools for suppressing both body and spirit. The Spanish Inquisition did not simply rely on fire or execution to maintain power. Its greatest weapon was fear, woven into every chamber, every device, every whispered accusation. The Strappado, the iron spider, the rack, the Pear of Anguish, the judgment chair, each served the same purpose, not to seek truth, but to enforce silence. What made this system so enduring was its disguise. The inquisitors claimed their methods were acts of purification, that pain would cleanse the soul and confession would save it. Yet behind the rhetoric of faith was something far simpler: control. By turning the human body into a battlefield, they ensured obedience, not just from the accused, but from entire communities who lived in dread of being next. Historians still debate the scale of these practices, but the testimonies that survive remind us of a chilling reality. Most who suffered were never proven guilty of anything at all. Their lives were shattered by suspicion, rumor, and the machinery of power. The Inquisition has long since ended, but its legacy lingers as a warning. When institutions claim suffering is necessary for salvation, when fear is used to silence and control, humanity's darkest instincts are never far away. So the question remains, what lessons do we take from these shadows of history? And more importantly, how easily could fear be used the same way again?